There are efforts being made by the United States. Joe Biden is visiting Israel. It's a high-profile visit. Then there is Antony Blinken in the region holding talks. There are efforts being made by the United Kingdom as well. My first question would be, can there be a diplomatic solution to this ongoing war?
No, I don't think so. I think that to humanitarian aspects of the war, like releasing the Israeli hostages that were kidnapped, civilians, out of Israel into Gaza, for that can be a solution. But when it comes to Hamas, ISIS terror organization, there is no solution with them. The only solution to make sure that they cannot execute against horrific barbaric attacks like they did last Saturday is going after them and killing them. We don't see any other solution. Diplomatic would not, we would not risk having the same attack occur again on Israel.
How do you plan to deal with the hostage situation, since you spoke about it?
Hostage situation is a new situation we never knew before. It will be a challenge, but because especially due to the fact that Hamas in the past were not hesitant to use their own population as human shields. They do it all the time, still do. They prevent their people from going when Israel Defense Forces ordered this population to go south away from the fighting zone in order not to harm them. Hamas blocked them and prevented them and did roadblocks and threatening them in order to prevent them from going there. So, it's clear that they will use the Israeli hostages in every psychological warfare way, including they threatened already, and I cannot exclude even executions and stuff like that. But, we have now, what happened last Saturday was something that never happened before. We never believed that people can be so barbaric, and 1,400 people were butchered, killed in their homes, children, baby, women, elderly, rape, beheading. What we knew from ISIS happened here. And our main concern is to make sure that this cannot happen again.
So you're saying that this should not happen again and cannot happen again, and rightly so, because it was really, really disturbing, Ambassador. There's confusion over whether there was a Israel-Gaza ceasefire, some kind of temporary truce to allow aid in or foreigners out of Gaza Strip. Could you give us a clear picture, please?
There are negotiations on different aspects of humanitarian aspects, and this is one of them. And, just follow the announcement of the Israeli IDF spokesperson, you will know. It has to be part of something bigger. So there are negotiations, and we will learn soon.
Antony Blinken had said that Rafah border crossing into Gaza will reopen and aid delivery is in progress. So how should we be reading his statement?
It's possible, I'm saying, in a bigger picture of discussing humanitarian needs of both sides. Everyone is speaking of the humanitarian needs of the Palestinians of Gaza, which we are more concerned than Hamas, apparently. But people are not speaking of the humanitarian issue of 200 families we know already that have relatives there captured. We don't know the situation. We are not sure about the names, who is alive, who is dead, from the age of 9 months to the age of close to 90 old ladies. And this is also, this is for us the gravest humanitarian concern now, for their well-being. So, humanitarian is it's a bigger picture than just the humanitarian of Gaza.
While there is sympathy for Israel, and rightly so, also unequivocal condemnation of terror attack by Hamas, Ambassador, there is also a huge concern now with WHO in particular, warning of a real catastrophe with just 24 hours of water, electricity and fuel left.
Yeah, I will take you again back, because I think that we are missing, you say the right things, but we are missing the context. The context was that last Saturday, Hamas unprovokedly opened an attack firing missiles, rockets at Israel. So far, more than 6,000. My wife went to Israel to be with my family. I have in Israel 4 kids, 5 grandchildren under attack. But in parallel to that, and they go to, and my father, who is close to 90, and my in-laws that are in age, in parallel, they penetrated 30 Israeli civilian communities, butchered, as I said before. I will not repeat the graphics. Because if you lose that picture, you are now concentrating on Gaza without remembering, I think this should be sharpened. And again, when coming to Gaza, we renewed the water supply. Even according to international law, by the way, if infrastructure is used for shooting at civilians, like electricity is used to shoot rockets at Israeli populations, you are not supposed to give it. So I think that we care about the Gazans, and that's why we asked them to evacuate from areas while Hamas is stopping them, more than Hamas does. One has to understand Gaza is under occupation, not occupation of Israel, because from 2005, Israel evacuated from Gaza, the unilateral withdrawal, we called it then, more than 10,000 civilians, Israeli civilians, and 20 communities. So they are under the occupation of Hamas. Hamas are ruling them. It's a dictatorship. It's a fundamentalistic ISIS-like party. And again, it's very convenient now to speak about only the humanitarian situation, suffering of the Gazans, which we do care about, and not remembering the other side.
Will this war expand? Of course, there are diplomatic efforts that are being made to avert a wider Asia conflict, but we are seeing clear positions being taken by countries. You have the Arab nations now with Palestine.
I don't think that the Arab nations are the problem. I think that the Arab nations, most of them, the moderate countries, they know that jihadist, Islamistic extremism are a risk to them as much or even more than they are a risk to us. They hate all the moderate regimes in the Middle East. The issue is not the Arab states. The issue is a non-Arab state, Muslim, called Iran. Iran is very much connected to everything that happened. We don't know enough about the planning so far to the exact role of Iran in the planning of this attack, vicious attack. But we do know that for years, Iran is training, arming, and financing Hamas. And this is there. Just 3 days ago, the Iranian foreign minister went to Beirut, met with Hisbah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad representatives. Hisbah, who is the de facto ruler and the wing of Iran in Lebanon, is from that time or before that even started threatening on opening another frontier in the northern border with Lebanon, and started shooting and also killing some Israelis on our side. And we prefer not to have another front, but we say very clearly that if Hezbollah, Iran, decide to open another front, Israel is able to fight in multiple fronts. And the price for Hezbollah/Lebanon, because Hezbollah are the rulers of Lebanon and the war is not with Hezbollah. This war is going to be with Lebanon. We don't know how to fight just the terror organization, which is also the leading political force in Lebanon. And I don't think that they want this war. I hear also voices in Lebanon. So our intent is not to widen the war, but it seems that there are other people who are trying to instigate, threaten, and other ways, and are making a big mistake.
So then, how do you plan to deal with this Hezbollah threat, as you're acknowledging?
So for the time being, there are border clashes, local border clashes. If it stays like that, it will stay like that. So they try to hit our soldiers, we retaliate. If it will be escalated, it will be escalated. So we are trying to contain it. We have a lot of forces now on the border, and our hope is to contain. And again, I don't know, it's very hard to predict because they are not the masters of their own will. There is Iran behind them. Iran with Hezbollah, it's even much closer than Hamas. It's really Shiite because Hamas are Sunnis. not Shiites like the Iranians, but Hezbollah are Shiites. It's blood. It's part of their blood. They say that Nasrallah, the leader, said more than once that he is a soldier in the army of Iran, the way he sees himself. So we'll wait and see what things are there. You know, the Americans didn't like this development, and that's why they send also carriers to the Eastern Mediterranean. Now a second one is coming in order to send a message. So we are going to fight them on our own, I believe. But the Americans are sending a message here to Iran and Hezbollah that they don't want another front.
Ambassador, does Israel still recognize the Palestine state? And if yes, in what form?
So there is no Palestinian state. There is a Palestinian Authority legally. Just that's the fact of life. There is the Palestinian Authority. We do recognize the Palestinian Authority, but it has nothing to do with Gaza. So if you know the history, or I'll remind people, 2005 Israel left the disengagement I mentioned before from Gaza. So no Israelis in Gaza from that time on. We left Gaza really in the hands of the Palestinian Authority. Then 2 years later there were elections, and soon after Hamas violently was a smaller power, by the way. They had many less soldiers. They killed Palestinian Authority people, threw them off rooftops, and took over Gaza by force. So Palestinian Authority in no way is relevant in Gaza. They are the enemies in the real world. They are the enemies of, or Hamas is their enemies, also in Judea and Samaria, not only there, they're enemies. But anyhow, according to the Oslo Accords, which were never cancelled, we created the Palestinian Authority with Mahmoud Abbas as its president, and we do recognize them, yes.
And let's focus on India now, because India has carried out its evacuation operation. But one thing is there on the minds of those who have worked in Israel: when can they go back? Can the situation ever improve for them to return?
Oh, of course, the situation is going to improve, because now we are back to the wars we knew in the past. What we didn't know in the past is this brutal attack that we had last Saturday. Now we are in a situation where they shoot rockets. We try to intercept the majority with Iron Dome, our system. We will go into ground attack like we did before. It's going to be much bigger, but they are contained to Gaza. The war rockets will fly, but the ground forces will be contained to Gaza. So we are back to normal. You know, we knew that in the past. It's going to be longer, deeper, harder. Many adjectives I can add to that. It's not going to be like previous ones, but the influence on the Israeli population shouldn't be significantly different. And now the evacuation, so far, I don't know how many Indians were taken out, but around 1,000, I believe, or so. There are around close to 20,000 Indians in Israel. Most of them did not want to leave so far.
Just a couple of more questions. Now, Ambassador, will the Hamas attack and the Israel strikes set the clock back on the normalization of Arab-Israel ties, which had seen a lot of positive movement in the last year?
So I hope not. I think that that was also in the mind of Iran and the perpetrators to try and derail it, because there were big efforts to have, after 3 years ago, the Middle East was changed by the Abraham Accords, where UAE and Bahrain and then Morocco joined, established relations with Israel and a lot of work together. Now Saudi Arabia was getting closer, and there were also discussions that were that already I2U2, for example, that includes India. This economic initiative was also part of it, and now we were talking about creating a route from India to the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, into Israel and the Mediterranean. And I think that they wanted to derail all of that. That was their aim. But as I said before, if you look at it from a logical point of view, at the end of the day, these extremists, fanatics of Islamic jihadists, like Hamas, ISIS, they are the enemies of Saudi Arabia. We are serving here the moderate countries in the Middle East, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan. All these countries are threatened by this ideology, and the fact that we are now giving a big blow to this group, I think will make the Middle East safer, and I hope also it will not have because of that, there will not be long-term influence of our relations with our neighbors.
My last question to you, and given India's stand in Russia-Ukraine war, when Prime Minister Modi said that this is not an era of war, we also know that Prime Minister Modi has had a long-standing equation with Benjamin Netanyahu. Can India play some role in resolving this several decade-old issue?
I don't think that we are going into resolving a decades issue. We have to resolve the crisis we have now. I do believe that India, over the years with the relations with Israel, acquired a lot of credibility. Prime Minister Modi is much appreciated in Israel. Last few research I saw, Israelis, there was a comparative research that showed that the Israelis are the most positive people in the research, in the countries in the research towards India. So I think that there is a lot, and we saw the incredible emotional support to Israel. And I think, people who were fast, like Prime Minister Modi and India, who were fast to condemn the terror attack as a terror attack, which not everyone did in the beginning, they bought themselves the right, I think, around the table, in the sense that they understood the situation. And the Americans are there. India is very close also to the US these days. So I believe that, I don't know if the big picture is solving, but India certainly is trusted by Israel, and we don't have a problem seeing them involved in our issues. We trust India.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for this conversation, Ambassador Naor Gillen there, Israel envoy to India, in the special conversation with NDTV. Thanks so much for watching.